It's Thursday, the 2nd of September 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, then find more news and interviews in our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. In today's headlines, Australia avoids a double dip recession as the economy expanded heading into the current lockdowns. Plus, Victoria gives up on the idea of zero COVID cases after a surge in new infections. Housing affordability rises, in some of the swishest suburbs in the country, and Commonwealth Bank is being sued for lending to oil and gas projects. Our lead story today, Australia has avoided a double-dip recession with the economy growing at a better-than-forecast 0.7% clip during the June quarter. The late morning announcement provided a boost for the share market and the Australian dollar, while bond yields rose. Lockdowns had a minimal impact on the quarterly figures, with stay-at-home orders kicking in for most regions after June 30. The GDP figures show consumer spending, business investment and government spending were all robust during the quarter. The savings rate remains relatively high at almost 10%. Since June, the country has been hit hard by lockdowns along the East Coast, and the consensus view is that the economy will contract by upwards of 3% during the current quarter. The question now is what happens during the December quarter. There's reason for optimism. Vaccinations are preventing serious illness, and Australia's vax rates are on the rise. Judging from last year, there'll be plenty of pent-up demand, which will drive both consumer and business spending when the economies eventually do reopen. And interest rates will remain low, and the federal government will keep doling out money. But this time, the economy will reopen while there are still hundreds or thousands of new cases being reported each day. How that affects spending is the big unknown. In overseas news, inflation is the tricky part of the economic jigsaw puzzle in most developed economies. Eurozone inflation jumped 3% last month, with German price rises up 4%, their highest level since 1993. Central banks have been arguing that the current wave of higher prices is transitory due to COVID-19, but not all market economists are so sure about that. China has declared that foreign ships entering Chinese territorial waters will have to declare their presence no matter what type of vessel. The catch is the definition of Chinese territorial waters, with Beijing laying claim to disputed territories in the South China Sea, East China Sea and Taiwan. Chinese state media said the failure of military ships to inform Beijing would be a serious provocation, and the Chinese military would take over to dispel or take even stronger measures to punish invaders. And Amazon said it plans to hire 55,000 people, mostly in the US, in technology and corporate positions in coming months. Last year, it hired an extra 500,000 people, and globally, it employs 1.3 million people as a result of consumers shopping from home due to COVID. It now runs 164 flights a day across the US to move parcels around the country. Locally, Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews has conceded a zero strategy for COVID-19 cases is no longer realistic after 120 cases were reported in the state yesterday. It was the highest number in a year. The Premier said Victoria is now working towards a threshold of 70% of people having had the first jab by the 23rd of September. That's when restrictions will start being eased, including a return of school children to the classroom. There are some slight easings in restrictions kicking in tonight, including the reopening of playgrounds, but a full reopening is now unlikely till November, and under current caseloads, it's unlikely the border with New South Wales will reopen until next year. New South Wales recorded 1,116 new cases yesterday and 4 deaths, all unvaccinated people with underlying health conditions. The ACT recorded 23 new cases. Housing affordability has improved in some of Melbourne's more expensive suburbs, including Yarra and in Fremantle in Perth and Adelaide City. That's because house prices have risen at a slower rate. But in areas in Sydney, particularly around the Northern Beaches and Baulkham Hills, it's deteriorated, according to CoreLogic. A deterioration in affordability is one of the main reasons why house prices may stop rising as fast as they have been for most of this year. Australia Post is taking drastic measures to get on top of the coronavirus-induced backlog of parcels and letters in distribution centres along the East Coast. It won't collect the mail in the ACT, New South Wales or Victoria from this Saturday morning until Tuesday evening. Aussie Post apologised for the decision, but said the safety of its people was its highest priority, and it needed to ensure volumes were kept at a safe and manageable level. Aussie Post has hundreds of employees currently in isolation. And a Commonwealth Bank shareholder is taking the bank to court to gain access to documents detailing its decision to finance oil and gas projects despite their potential to breach the Paris Agreement goals, according to the Financial Review. The case could trigger a new wave of climate change litigation as shareholders seek to hold companies to account for their environmental commitments. We're going to hear much more about shareholders wanting companies to be environmentally responsible in the run-up to the annual general meeting season. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. Make sure you hit follow so you get it every morning and search for our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. There, you'll also find our daily interview. Today, we're talking to AMP Chief Economist, Dr. Shane Oliver. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter, or go to fearandgreed.com.au. I'll be back later with the afternoon market report. I'm Sean Aylmer. Have a great day.